Like I hear it all the time, and I'm sure you probably hear it, where people are not happy with themselves, or they're not happy at the fact that they're stuck in their career that they're in, and they want to follow their dreams, but they don't have the courage yet. They don't have the drive yet to follow their dreams, or they're feeling committed to family, which I can understand. But you're living proof right there. It can be done. And I just want people out there to hear your story of, first of all, what made you make that decision? And second of all, the courage, the heart it takes, the dedication, sacrifice that you've had to make to get your two young, beautiful boys, your wife, and sit them down and be like, look, this is my plan of action. This is what I want to be doing. Let's go and make it work in another country and start it. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Drop In with Pindi podcast from Warriors TMA Academy, a podcast for everyone from business inspirational leaders, combat sports enthusiasts, martial artists, and fitness fans. Together, we can build our self-discipline, confidence, and positive mindsets through great leaders. Now, here's your host, coach and former pro fighter, Pindi Matahar.
Welcome, ladies and gents, back here with another episode of the Drop In with Pindi podcast, and I am delighted to announce I am here with the OG, the guy that started it all off for me with the episode number 1 a couple of years back with the Drop In with Pindi podcast, Mr. Professor Victor Estima, everyone. Victor, thank you so much for taking the time out of the most hectic schedule I've ever known to come back to Coventry here and do a podcast with me. So thank you so much for obviously agreeing to do this podcast again.
No,
So
it's a pleasure, Pindi. You know, our friendship go a long way.
Absolutely.
It's always worth the effort to come and see you, spend time with you, and of course, with this opportunity to share the stories that we have, that we can, and do our contribution to what you're doing. This is something very important to me. So I'm here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Victor. Like the podcast, the episode 1, what we did a couple of years ago, that was insane. The feedback I got from that was crazy. The comments are still flying away in YouTube when we released the video, and that gave everyone an insight of everything that you've achieved in your past and made you who you were today, and in your athletic career, in your professional career, to obviously what you're achieving today. But there's a real big reason why I wanted to get you here today. And the whole purpose of me starting these podcasts is I wanted to try and get people out there to really follow their dreams and get them inspired by getting great guests like yourselves, your brother, and other martial artists and other business leaders out there that have really achieved what they've achieved in their careers. And so it's to inspire millions out there that are listening to this podcast. Something I want to go into detail about with yourself, because you've done a massive, not a U-turn as such, but you've essentially started again. But we'll go into that very, very shortly. And it's such an inspiring story for people out there to hear. But before we go into that, you came out of retirement last week. How did that feel? How did that feel? You came out of retirement to go back on the mats.
You know, like Pindi, so for me, my relationship with competition it was always, challenging myself to be the best I can be, going for tournaments that are a high level, reaching out for world championships and everything else that I've done for so long. And when I made a decision to stop competing in 2016, I took it very seriously. And many people ask me, hey, Victor, when are you competing again? And my answer was always no. The reason why I used to say no all the time is because I didn't feel the need of competing. I think I didn't feel like I already was okay with everything that I've done, and I was ready to begin a new journey of my life and wanted to dedicate 100% of my efforts and energy on this new journey, which is, developing the team and developing my students and focus on my family. But of course, that is sometimes a bigger calling, right? For me to step in a tournament, it needed to be a bigger reason, not just, hey, I'm going to challenge myself. It was more than this. For me, it was about inspiring our generations of black belts to compete into our CompNet. league, which is something that we are developing. We are really working hard and on showcasing what a competition should look like, what sort of moral values and vibe we wanted to create in a tournament. We in the CompNet is something that at the moment we provide tournaments for Gracie Barra schools where we can really strengthen the bond and the team. So I am 100% in helping Gracie Barra develop and support it in whatever it needs to be. And competing in the CompNet, if that's what it takes for me to come out of retirement and step in on the mats to be able to showcase, that people can see the CompNet with different eyes and to see that doesn't matter if you're a school owner or you're a professor teaching every day. Maybe that's where you want to go and compete. Maybe you're going to be competing with other teammates inside the team, but it's okay because we are challenging each other. We're supporting each other as well. So that was the real reason of going to compete. It was really to help the Gracie Barra community to see, hey, let's go. Let's go to the competition. And I had the opportunity to compete with students of mine and with competitors in Gracie Barra that I never had a chance to compete. It was a very positive experience. 100%. I really enjoyed it.
I absolutely loved it. I saw it was about a month ago. I think it was about a month ago or about 6 weeks ago. I saw your Instagram story and it's like, when you register and your name popped up, I was like, and I was with Raj, my wife, and we were just on the sofa. We were like, it was like, is this happening? And then we thought, nah, it's a little prank you're doing, right? Like a little joke you're gonna do. But then it was actually real. And then your stories was about you guys training in Portugal. You're doing the comp training, and you're sharing your story with us and getting ready for CompNet. And I was like, holy crap, this is real. And I got for me, it's like going a bit in the past. So I was like, I got so excited to see, yes, you're competing again. From a fan's point of view, looking at it from the outside point of view, I was like, whoa, that's insane. And then for me, when I was there last week and I was watching you and I was just seeing you, and just before you come on the mats and your hood's up and you're in the zone, it was so exciting.
Bring back to myself, isn't it? It's like bring back to that version of myself that is, hang on a second, I'm here about to compete. Let's bring the focus, and then it was so nice as well that I for some reason, like when I was competing, Gracie Barra had way less nice products. We were in a very different stage when I used to compete, and now the Gracie Barra had this beautiful, the team kit, the competition kit that when I was watching my students and going competing with that, I was like, man, that looks sick.
I wish I had that when I was.
I know. So now I went full kit. I was 100%. Like red hoodie in. I was with my kimono. I had everything, feeling, representing. And it felt so nice. It was
an honor. It was an honor to see you doing your thing, going on there and expressing yourself. It was really good. It was so nice. I know you've touched on it a bit, but how did it feel stepping on those mats again for the first time? 2016 was your last?
Yes, 2016. Yeah. It was a little bit of a mixed feeling because I felt like I was coming on a competition for a different reason. And then I was competing with people that are, some of them I taught jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And it was a different feel.
Yes.
It felt different than going to compete in the World Championships. It felt like, hang on a second, I'm actually with people that I respect, people that I grew to know very well, and they're part of my family in jiu-jitsu. And therefore, and there was a little bit of a conflict that in my mind, like, hang on a second, how much do I want to really win this match? And how this is going to look? What kind of game should I bring? And that was part of it because some of them were my students. I felt like this, but then at the same time, I managed to compete with athletes that were not my students, and I was able to feel like more like, okay, hang on a second, this is like game on, and so it felt butterflies in my stomach, and it's still like I feel the same. And also in that tournament, I felt that the pressure was all on me, right? And then I felt, okay, what can I gain from this tournament? What is the personal gain here? And then what am I doing this for? I kept reviewing those questions, and then I was like, man, I'm here for a bigger deal here, and then a bigger purpose. And I'm here. Let's showcase good jiu-jitsu. First of all, let's show jiu-jitsu can be fun, can be flowy, can be comfortable, can be good to look at, could be exciting. So I wanted to create a bit of a hybrid there. Now, exciting jiu-jitsu to see, but also respectful, but also appreciating that I was there again. trying to share with my students, because I know many of them didn't see me compete for so long. So I was there trying to really, they all asked me to see, but we didn't have that like any streaming. So I started to put my Instagram live, because I just wanted my son that never saw me compete to maybe see, you know. And then I was like trying to make this experience something that it was you know, a bit bigger than just go and compete and come back home. I was trying to really somehow make the most out of that experience.
Of course, and you certainly did that. Like from your students' point of view, as myself watching you there is such an experience, and I'm sure everyone and all of our teammates across the country would be feeling the exact same thing, because we absolutely loved it watching you step on those mats. It just brought back memories for us watching you when you used to be in the Europeans, the Worlds, and it just like a little flashback, but the new version of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's really,
it felt like a new me competing, because I only competed at professional tournaments, like a major tournament.
Yeah.
And the CompNet, it is a major tournament in the UK, but it's still different from a World Championships, European Championships.
So linked to that, what is the goal with CompNet? Because CompNet is an amazing platform, and I know when CompNet's obviously, the idea of CompNet is to get the Gracie Barra family from across the world, not just national, but across the world together and compete, and seeing the likes of yourselves and some of the other higher belts now that are going onto the platform to do it. Are you looking now in the future for maybe the next CompNet or the CompNet after to get more of the senior leaders as such to be on that platform, or is it to make it open nationally? Is that what you're trying to do? What's your goal with that?
So the CompNet, it's a tournament that was developed inside Gracie Barra, reflecting on the early stages of Jiu-Jitsu in Barra da Tijuca. When Gracie Barra was competing in the World Championships in the early stages of the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, there was something called Seletiva, which is basically a trial, internal trial, to see who are going to be representing Gracie Barra at the major tournaments, because we had way more athletes than is allowed per division. So every major tournament, there's 2 Gracie Barra athletes representing the team. We call the team A, the main team, like the prime team, you know, like a Premier League.
Yes,
you know.
Yes, I hear.
And then every other team had the same, but we had so many talent that we had to test who is the best prepared to represent at that tournament.
That level.
So at the World Championships, there'll be like the trial competitions.
Right.
Marcel Carlos used to do this trial so nobody gets upset. Hey, I could be competing. I could do better. No. Let's see.
Let's see it.
Whoever earns this goes. So a fair way to select, and also a way to train and prepare our own athletes to be represented at the highest level. So that was already happening very, very long time ago.
Okay.
And the CompNet, now after the global development of Gracie Barra, CompNet became something that was much bigger, that represented Gracie Barra what it is today. Right? Gracie Barra, it is a global organization.
Yes.
Gracie Barra focused on jiu-jitsu for everyone.
Yes.
We believe that most people, anybody that trains jiu-jitsu will benefit and become a better person.
Absolutely.
And we have the mission inside of our organization to bring jiu-jitsu all over the world.
Yeah.
And with CompNet, we want to be able to give a chance for those who want to compete in the right mindset, in the right environment that nurture growth and development.
Yes.
In a family environment where kids and parents can go and feel comfortable and they are adding value to their children, and the mentality of us coming to the mats, warming up together, the coaches support each other. If a student loses a match, all coaches come and support because they're all part of our team.
Yes.
And this is a very nice place for us to build great moral values inside the competition, teaching our athletes to become honorable, respectful. And this is something that adds a lot of value.
Sure.
So if you want to, and also at the same time, you can make our best athletes, right? We can just give a chance for our best all over the country, all over the world, can come compete against each other, and to recognize who are our best talents, and at the same time, bringing steel sharpen steel. They get the toughest together, so they can really push each other forward, and then therefore they can maybe train together, but they can compete together, and therefore they continue to push themselves forward, and then that could be a nice platform for themselves. And looking to this kind of mentality, because Gracie Barra is also a global organization, this is happening in Brazil, United States, in Canada, in Africa, in Japan, and many locations. So then it gives a chance for students of Gracie Barra from all over the world to go and travel and benefit from the lifestyle and connecting with our community in different parts of the world. So now we are planning to have competitions in CompNet in Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, in the UK, in the United States, and now things are expanding. So I wanted to support that idea through my own, like go and compete myself, but at the same time showcase the event so people can see what CompNet's really trying to achieve. And at the same time, we are building something really special, because nowadays I can see competitions happening all over the country, and it's multiple competitions per weekend. And what's happening? Most competitions becoming a little bit only like the title doesn't really bring you up. The title doesn't have prestige. It's just the experience of adding a few matches. And that's something for me that sometimes I always wanted to compete to elevate. I want to be competing in the biggest challenges. So in order to bring people to compete in a tournament like this, you need to be creating prestige, you need to creating value, you need to change something. So we want to create the CompNet something that is the place to compete through its organization, but also because we are nurturing better athletes all the time. And whoever wins the CompNet also go be a part of our global league, where it's going to be recognized inside our global organization. It's going to be prizes. It's going to be many different things that we're developing. Even the ambassadors program will be a big part of this, which is, for me, who doesn't know the ambassadors program, is our internal athlete support. We have fundraisers to help our new athletes, young generations, to coming through and to have a chance to continue their professional pathway inside the competitions. So we want to create a synergy across the whole project in Gracie Barra, and we never know what may happen to CompNet, because as the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I can see it. From the reason I asked the question is because I could just see it elevating. I could see it going up and up and up. Like, I remember going to one of the first CompNets that we did in the country to the one where we were at last week, and the one again, it's always progression, and it comes down to the organization. Because as soon as you come in from a spectator's point of view to an athlete's point of view, walking in, everything was so systemized and it was so well organized. And this is no disrespect to any other organizations out there, but when I send students of mine to competitions, and some of the competitions you're going in there, you're scratching your head because you just can't get.
Yeah.
You don't know which direction you need to be going in. Simple things make the biggest difference. I remember walking in and there was arrow point to where the change rooms are. There's an arrow point to where the warm-up area is. There's an arrow to where the toilets are. It's like simple things like that makes such a huge
difference, isn't
huge impact. And
then sorry.
Yeah, go on. No, I was just saying like that just, it goes to show, like, again, from a spectator's point of view to an athlete's point of view, you can just see the constant progression with people think that's little things, but it makes a big impact.
Yeah, that's true. Like, there's a lot of thoughts going on, because of course, when we begin something like this, we want to, depend on why you do what you do, it changes your approach. And sometimes if you just run a tournament just for the sake of running a tournament and there's no purpose into it, it dies out. But if something that is constantly developed, you're listening to our feedback, we get we send out emails asking for people to give opinions, and then they give us opinions. We work on those opinions and we improve the service. From the first CompNet, from the World League to now the third tournament, we changed and we fixed every single little thing that we were missing before. And that's the path now, continue to evolve and give a better service, a better experience. So in the end of the day, the athletes and the spectators, they will have a positive experience.
Exactly.
And they will want to come back.
I was just about to say that it's all about the experience. Like, again, from an athlete's point of view, from a spectator's point of view. And it's, again, things like that make such a big impact. And it's not just with martial arts or jiu-jitsu or Gracie Barra. Every business does that. Every business that has an event or has something, they call it the debriefs. The events on the Saturday, the Monday, the whole team meet up. What went well? And the meeting's all about what went well, but majority of it is what can we do to improve? What can we do to fix this? What can we do to make it better? And I think it's so important that proof's in the pudding. We see it at every event that you guys do. It's unbelievable, and I absolutely love it because, like I said, walking in, seeing all these little signposted up everywhere makes such an experience from a spectator's point of view, that you walk in rather than feeling frustrated, thinking, "Where's the toilet? Where's this? Where?" It's straight. Energy levels are calm, and it's so much more better. So I just want to say a huge well done to not only yourself but the whole team behind it. That
is a fact. I have a big team, Pindy,
Yeah.
working very hard every day. You know,
Absolutely.
the people on the emails, the people planning and thinking and communicating, and even our social media. You know, like showing around what's going on and keeping the community engaged. And that doesn't happen in a local level around Europe and UK, but also happen in a global side. We are constantly working to improve, and that's nice when you see Gracie Barra coming together to create something special like this. And the CompNet doesn't even have a Gracie Barra name attached to it, but it shows that it's something completely independent, but we are doing for Gracie Barra. And that's something that we can see. And the more the Gracie Barra athletes and members across the world recognize the difference and what the CompNet will become with time, they will start understand where they want to go and put the energy in the tournament, right? And it's all matter of time. We're progressing, we're developing, and now when people can connect traveling and lifestyle together with the tournament, and that it makes a lot more sense.
Absolutely.
And we can see. Let's see where the CompNet will
I
be
think I can
in a
see
few
it.
years.
Yeah, man, I can see it happen. I can see big things happening there. I can see it. That's why I had to ask that question. But no, it's good. So it's great. It's great to see you back on the mats. It was an absolute honor to witness that live again, and seeing you there is just is great. But now, going back to when I started this podcast, and I was saying there's a reason why I've been hounding Victor to get him here, and the reason being for that is to inspire all you listeners out there, because we think in life we keep on going down this one pathway. We're going, and things will get in the way, and that's part of life, and we got to deal with it. But since Victor was last on this podcast, you've not only started all over again, but in a completely different new country, and it's a great story. Obviously, I'm aware of it, but I want the listeners out there to hear and be inspired about. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter family commitments, children, doesn't matter what's happened or where you are in life, or you're feeling stuck in a dead end job in the most respectful way. Like I hear it all the time, and I'm sure you probably hear it, where people are not happy with themselves, or they're not happy at the fact that they're stuck in their career that they're in, and they want to follow their dreams, but they don't have the courage yet, they don't have the drive yet to follow their dreams, or they're feeling committed to family, which I can understand. But you're living proof right there, it can be done. And I just want people out there to hear your story of, first of all, what made you make that decision, and second of all, the courage, the heart it takes, the dedication, sacrifice that you've had to make to get your two young beautiful boys, your wife, and sit them down and be like, look, this is my plan of action, this is what I want to be doing, let's go and make it work in another country and start it, let's do it. I want to hear it from the beginning, because it's just so inspiring. Like, I've seen you do it, and I've seen you do it now, and I'm thinking this could be done. Maybe does that? And I've had this conversation with you, and I'm like, wow. And I hope, like, when people have heard your story, they'll feel the courage and the inspiration, shall I say, to be like, this can be done. It's never too late. It can be done. Does that make sense?
100%. I think first of all, I can just share a little bit about what's done and what happened. So I share what's my mindset on that. When I made the decision, right, I came to the United Kingdom. I lived here for 18 years, right, and I was very involved on developing my school and contributing to the jiu-jitsu community in the country. I am a very attached person. I'm very a people's person, and I love my students. I love the people around me, and I work very hard to maintain my relationships. And through those years, I always been this kind of person who wants to develop and grow, and I have been committed to do so for so long. I moving from Brazil to the UK, I lost my fear of the challenges, fear of trying something new. And I feel like what you were talking about, there's a lot of people out there that sometimes want to follow their dreams, but sometimes they don't have the courage because there's a very big thing, and sometimes being comfortable, it it's safe, but safety doesn't make you sometimes develop and grow. And I think that uh, when I had this very early stage experience that I was coming out of my country and I had to establish myself in a new culture, in a new place, and I followed my dream, which was the biggest thing, and I had to put myself out there. I was willing to to put myself under potential failure. I could be in a country and I don't make it. I can't maybe be accepted. Maybe when I came here for the first time, I didn't even know if I could live here. I had to first figure out how can I come live here with a working visa. That was my first hurdle. But I don't know anyone, and how do I get to go from not knowing if you actually can stay to actually build a community, work hard, and then you get accepted and you get the working visa, and then eventually you go in your career and you do what you have to do. So it's so many hurdles that needed to happen, but it only does when you actually have the commitment and the passion to go no matter what, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people out there that perhaps they struggle with what it is that they want to do.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because we touched upon this a few weeks ago when I was with you, and it's like a lot of people struggle to see what their purpose is in life. We're I wouldn't say we're lucky, but we kind of are, because you started your jiu-jitsu journey all those years ago, not wanting to be in the position you are now. I don't think you ever imagined you'd be where you are now. You probably had one goal in mind, and that was to become European and world champion, and that was everything, because you were in that
Mindset.
in that professional athlete mindset. I started martial arts, and I never thought I'd be where I am today, because all I wanted to do is become a world champion in Thai boxing, or whichever sport it was. And with that, and everything we've learned with martial arts, every goal you have, there's a purpose behind it. There's because we're on that pathway and we're going, and we can see the destination, but it's going like this.
Yeah,
and a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, and then I think like purpose is such a big word, and it's such a big thing. And I don't believe sometimes when you're young and you're coming across, you already know your purpose. Very few people, they probably feel that.
Yeah.
But that is things that drives that you're drawn to, things that you're passionate about. I think it begins about that first, right? You first need to figure out things that you're passionate about. But it goes again, if you don't experience things, if you don't go out there, try new things and putting yourself out there, you won't be able to even get to know what you're passionate about if you're not willing to explore. I think exploring is a very important thing, so you can feel what connects with you and what you want. And when you actually have already the chance to explore and you know what things make you feel good, and you could see yourself doing this a lot independently or whatever, and that's already a sign. Your gut feelings telling you maybe this, I should do more of this, but then obstacles come, which is the real life, and worry and fear. I have a comfortable job and I don't enjoy my job, but I'm getting enough money to sustain myself. And if I had to go and jump into do something else, that means I will have to, I won't be able to earn money until then. And I don't have any savings. I have a kid, right? And that is the sort of thing that is really hard for people to make a decision and jump. And I actually can share with everyone here a small little point in my life that I got to the lowest, and that's where the risk you have to sometimes get to the lowest point, but depends who you want to be, you know, what you need to change. So when I moved from the Brazil to the UK, I lived in Birmingham for 5 years. But my dream was to open my own school, my own jiu-jitsu school, which I had the opportunity to do so in 2009. So I went to Mansfield to open my first school. When I went there, I had the chance, right, to start, but then didn't do it by my own means. I had support with somebody else, which eventually, 2 years later, I built the school, and that partnership really collapsed because I was not treated very well. It was a bit of a chaos. I was young. I was trusting, very trusting, and I was putting the work, but then things didn't go right. And then I was left out without a school, have worked for 2 years for barely any money. And I was just barely surviving for those 2 years when my son was born. So my son was born in 2010. And when I was in Birmingham, I was really well paid. I was okay. It was not like I was in a bad spot. I was in a great spot.
Of course.
But I wanted to really take the risk to open my own school without knowing 100% if I knew how to run a school.
Yeah.
I knew I had the courage and the will to learn.
The drive to do
it. The drive to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the part when I feel like, yes, I decided, my wife was pregnant. We were planning having a baby. And I never thought in my mind that I was going to fail. So I was planning to have a kid, new academy, new life. Until that didn't work. And I was with a 1.5-year-old kid, now without an academy, and struggling financially, and not sure what's going to happen. And that was a moment where you fear. But then, everyone, that's when magic happens. If you got grit, if you got willpower, if you got determination, when you get to that position that you're in the lowest, it eats a fuel. It drives you so hard if you're willing to take the energy. And that's why if you fear of the lowest thing, if you fear the lowest thing, remember that the lowest thing will fill you up, right? It will drive you even more if you use that energy to push yourself forward. And if you know that there is no fear of going down, because then you're really determined to achieve your dream, there's nobody stopping you. Because everything began from that for me. That's when I put all my energy in my training, because that's all I knew I could do. That was in my control. I would train harder than anybody else, and I will come over wanting more than anybody else. And then I became world champion in a no-gi, European champion, submitting all my fights. And that's when I began to get a bit more showcase. I started to go traveling for seminars. I was able to build a little bit more money, and I was able to invest in my first school. And then very quickly the school grew. And then I was so able to support my family and support my own career, which I was a struggle to travel all over without sponsors. So then even that, I had to create my own reality to be able to do what I love. So then, because I was so passionate about what I did, I knew it's only a matter of time I was going to get things done. I was going to get progress, and I was going to be able to sustain myself, and I'm going to be able to progress, achieve my dreams. And then that was the biggest thing. So if somebody's out there and don't have any passion for something and you're stuck, maybe just explore is the first thing. And when you find those things, you have to stop with the fear. Believe, and sometimes because you're doing your passion, there's no lose there. You're going to be fulfilled because you're doing what you love and what you really want to do. And guess what? With people that love what they do, they become really good at what they do.
Absolutely, because they don't work a day in their life.
And then if you're really good at what you do, you're gonna be recognized. You're gonna build a business. You're gonna build a skill. You're gonna build yourself into something. And then it's only a matter of time. So if we have that mentality, that means we can take a shot. So going back to the Portugal restart, so I knew I faced that big challenge in the early stages, and I knew what I had to do to grow. And then I did it. 10 years later, built a success story in my school. I helped a lot of students of mine to achieve exactly what I was achieving. I was able to support Gracie Barra and the team to get bigger and stronger. And as part of my job, I evolved from being an athlete to Gracie Barra leadership and developing the entities. And And that became my new identity, right? From being an athlete to this. But then I was in a moment where I constantly were pushing to become better and facilitate for others. And you get to a point that you need to change something to be able to continue to develop yourself. If you sit on the top of the things that you built without allowing other people to grow and elevate others, you get stuck and the project gets stuck. So I felt this calling, the calling of continue to grow myself in a direction that I didn't grow before and coming out of my comfort zone again. And I know now I'm much more experienced, I'm much more supported. I did it with nothing.
Literally.
With nothing.
Literally.
How can I not do already supported, right?
Exactly. And like just before we like move on and we talk about Portugal now, but like just for the listeners out there as well, you touched upon that time, and I don't want to keep referring back to it, but by the time you were in Mansfield, your goals of opening up a school were non-existent. You had little Vincent there who was 1.5 years of age. And there was kind of, at that point there was no direction which way you were going, because you wasn't 100% sure in where you were going to go, because Nottingham wasn't on the plans yet. To explain to the listeners that they're like, it's a difficult situation you're in, but one thing that you've touched upon is, we touched upon it earlier, was your purpose. You had a purpose. You knew you had a goal when you were in Birmingham. You want to be your own school owner. You want to continue to obviously to drive as an athlete. But how did you get out of that lowest point you've ever been in to make that decision to be like, right, I'm going to go Nottingham. This is where I see an opportunity to go. And why Nottingham?
Great question. So when I was on the lowest point, I was committing for 2 years to a school. So in that school, I built students. And some of those students, they were from Mansfield. Some of those students were from different parts of the country. And I have been working on them, on helping them love jiu-jitsu, showing them a guide, a direction in how jiu-jitsu can change their lives and how they can make jiu-jitsu their passion, and their passion can become their jobs, and they can grow inside jiu-jitsu. And that was a moment where I'm not from here. I don't know anyone. What do I do? There's one thing screaming. There are people that believe in you, and they are made massive life changes during these 2 years, expecting to continue to develop and learn jiu-jitsu, and I never want to let them down. I had opportunities to maybe look to leave the UK and go to the United States, where in California is the hub of jiu-jitsu at that time. It still is, but at the time was the beginning of what it is today. And I had great opportunities, but then there's this calling. Don't just give in on the people because you find hardship. You know, I am a person with roots. I didn't just leave my country just like that. I was very rooted in my country, and I was trying to come to the UK for providing a better future for myself and my family, and safer. And then so I will be grateful for the place that accepted me, and I will contribute back. And those are the people who supported me. And I had this drive. I need to be in a school where in a bigger city than Mansfield. So Nottingham was the closest city. And the people that were coming to Mansfield, they could come to Nottingham because Mansfield is not too far from Nottingham. And therefore, I didn't want to be too far away from my brother, who lives in Birmingham too, so I can connect to still family somehow. And I wanted to build, my work in a different location, but it's close enough. So then it made sense for me at that time that Nottingham was going to be the place. And that's where I'm very glad I did, because we feel like it really has impacted the city in which jiu-jitsu. Because today, through that work, that is like 3 Gracie Barra schools and growing, and we have all the jiu-jitsu schools that all began from that school.
I remember. That's incredible.
And then today, jiu-jitsu is very strong in Nottingham, and I'm very happy and proud to have been a contributor to this.
Yes.
And now I know that jiu-jitsu remain there. Gracie Barra is getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
And the job is done. So I'm happy to see that.
It's great to see, because I saw your story last night with apologies, forget his name, the child.
Urian.
Yeah, and you started teaching him in Nottingham.
Mansfield.
Oh, in Mansfield.
Mansfield.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
As a what did you say?
3.5 years old.
Yeah, there you go.
He used to come over to train. His parents is from Nottingham and used to come to Mansfield to train with me. And then eventually, when I moved to Nottingham, they all came because they lived in Nottingham, and I didn't even know.
And wow.
Yeah. So then nowadays
Can I ask you a question with him? Like, that's a prime example. You've got someone that started as pretty much a baby. Yeah, 3.5 years old. He's now what, 17 years of age. He's teaching as a blue belt in Nottingham. I've not spoken to him, but like, what's his desire? What's his goal? Is he gonna do this as full time? Is he going to college, university, or is he pursuing jiu-jitsu? Does that make like what? Because that's a.
This is touching the same subject about passion and purpose and really go and commit to the thing that you love. And he's been fortunate to be in jiu-jitsu for so young, since he's very young, and he's growing inside jiu-jitsu. He loves being there. He loves coaching. Now he's that product of someone who's been training jiu-jitsu for his life. And now he's growing to become a man with the values, with the integrity, and with the experience of a martial artist. And now he's a contributor to the community because he's coming back to teach kids. And he's a blue belt in belt because he's so young, but he's way beyond.
He's not a blue belt.
He's a much higher level than a blue belt.
Yeah.
But he's only 17, so we want him to make the steps up.
Yeah.
And this is incredible to see, happening. And as I talk to Iriam, he sees himself doing jiu-jitsu for the rest of his life. He wants to eventually own his own school. He wants to continue to grow and develop. And he will do it in education, but he's going to have jiu-jitsu side to side. And then I think today we have the privilege because jiu-jitsu is all over the country, and then you can connect your jiu-jitsu career with your university, and now people can do both together. It doesn't need to be that you need to quit studying to just do jiu-jitsu. You can get an education and train at the same time. But if you want to be a competitive career, maybe you need to do different priorities, because nowadays to be an athlete world champion is a full-time job on its own. You still can do it with an education. I don't believe that you can't, but it just requires a lot of will to do so.
The level's gone up. The level's gone up completely.
You need to live and breathe competition, not just train hard every day and do a lot for it. But it's studying. Yeah. There's a lot of studying that needs to involve.
What do you mean by studying? Do you mean reflect on what you mean by studying? Like, go more into that. Do you mean as in studying other competitors, watching their fights, really researching each individual, or
all of it? All of it.
Okay.
Studying, analyzing, strategize, study jiu-jitsu techniques and games and everything. It needs to be done nowadays. You cannot just go train really hard and just get on and do it.
Yeah.
No, you need to really understand jiu-jitsu and have a clean-cut strategy to be able to deal with the players that you're going to fight. Sometimes you don't even know, but you got to be prepared against anyone. So it's a bit of everything. You need to be good at strategy. You need to be really good at techniques. You need to be evolving your techniques to things and directions that people don't know, so you can be surprising, and you need to really study jiu-jitsu. You cannot just go there and be with the two games and win. It's really hard to do that. It's much bigger. So I think to be a real top athlete, you need to be well conditioned, you need to be well studied, you need to be well trained, and you need to want more than anybody else.
Yeah,
so if you want it so bad, you need to do. You need
to do all of that. You need to put that into practice. No, because the reason I touched upon your student there is because, again, and the purpose of having you here today is to share your story of how you've redone it all. But that's a prime example right there. Young boy, done it since he's pretty much been a toddler, to now being 17 years of age. And again, having that desire to do what he wants to do and follow his passion, follow his dream in that sense. And people that are stuck out there, because I have it all the time. There's people here, unfortunately, I get a few phone calls on a daily basis where someone's stuck, they're suffering mentally with mental health issues, they're stuck in their careers, they can't, no, that's the wrong word, they can, but they choose not to get out. They choose not to get out. I don't believe in the word can't, because they've got a choice. But it's having that fire in their belly to make sure they can do that. And you just hit the nail on the head by saying, explore, try a few things out, and then obviously try and follow it that way. But you've done it, and you've just hit the nail on the head, where in Nottingham, you're the main tree. Victor Estima, you're the tree, and you've got all the branches and everything that's coming off it, with all your students that are now school owners, the jiu-jitsu, how it's spread all across the UK is down to yourselves, and your amazing students are part of that as well. And you've allowed them to believe in jiu-jitsu, and as martial artists as well, to follow and make a living for themselves, and to basically support their families, and it's doable. So in the most respectful way, you've done that in Nottingham. You've super comfortable. You've got 2 beautiful boys. You've got your wife. You've got your house. You've got your car. Everything. So you're in the perfect position, as from the outside point of view, right? And everyone can see that. But then obviously you choose to go to a different country. Like, no, I remember having this conversation with you. This is just before COVID, I think it was. I can't remember how long ago it was. But you were getting an extension done on your house. You're like really making, everything as well as it could be, as well as it could be. So from going from the lowest to the lowest to the highest of the highs here in the UK. Why change it? Why change it?
So that was amazing. Like when you said over there that Victor is the tree, the hub there of Nottingham, and that's where I feel like it is being different. Like, yes, I begun. Maybe I was the first tree. Somebody there dedicated 100%. But all those years, I've been working very, very, very hard on building and helping other trees grow. And if I want to continue to evolve and develop myself, I need to challenge myself. But if I take myself out of the equation and we don't have strong foundations to sustain everything that we worked for so many years, it breaks. So the work and the education was to always create a sustainable development, that other people are able to grow and develop opportunities inside the project. And today, when I decided to change, because I'm living the truth of myself, I've been true to who I am. I am the person who strives to improve in every aspect of my life. If I hold myself back to be only in one location, and I will just limit myself to that radius, I will stop developing to what I believe I can develop to. So within Gracie Barra, I'm constantly working in a bigger scale. I'm trying to facilitate and help other professors and leaders to become as successful and be able to achieve what I have achieved being a school owner. And that means it's about constant developing myself and helping others develop with me. So nowadays I can see Professor Sean Coates. He is a solid branch, a branch that became a tree, and is a solid tree for Gracie Barra Nottingham. And then we have Professor Simon Ling, a solid tree in Gracie Barra Arnold. You have other professors and instructors in the other schools like Bakersfield. We got Ramon becoming one of the branches, becoming a solid tree. And that I see in Nottingham itself, when I started looking in the big picture, I say, okay, I have worked so hard to create a sustainable environment that it doesn't matter if I'm there or not, the team grows and the team is strong by providing opportunities for the people to elevate themselves. So the young people can become young leaders, and young leaders can become strong leaders. And that wouldn't happen if I sat in the same place. Sometimes it requires you to remove yourself and try to push yourself to go up so others can grow with you. So my goal to go to Portugal and restart, I don't look as a restart. I look as am I evolving into a new version of myself? So I saw that in the UK, Gracie Barra has leaders, professors, school owners that are continuing to develop the jiu-jitsu here, including my brother, Professor Lagarto, Professor Salvo in the South. We have Professor Graham, Jamie Paxman, Professor Oliver, Professor David Woosman. That's Professor Nathan Roberts. There's so many professors across the whole country. They were part of the whole growth and development, and they're now doing it as well. So then now I can see, okay, if my responsibility, Marcel Carlos Gracie Jr., gave me a challenge, which is to help and facilitate development of Gracie Barra across the continent. And if I am the person who have the responsibility, and I build experience of develops here and contributing here in the UK, and the project thankfully has been very successful, I felt duty and care to try to take my experience and try to help another region, right? And then I could see that in European countries, we needed to be more closer and help them with the experience that we got from being in the UK.
Why Portugal?
And in Portugal, it become a bigger deal, right? Because in order for me to make a change, there was a few effects, like because I manage GBWare, which is the distribution of products, of uniforms of Gracie Barra. When Brexit happened, things really changed. As I am a facilitator of Gracie Barra projects, my responsibility is to make sure that everything is sustainable and growing and developing. So when we could no longer support the schools in Europe, and European schools always struggled because a lot of the leadership and projects were focused on the United Kingdom because of the amount of professors and leaders that are already here, including the names I just told you, Professor Braulio Lagarto and many others. It were not the same proportion into the outside countries in Europe. So I was looking for a place where I can create a GBWare after Brexit to support the schools in Europe. Then I made the change of, okay, so if I need to do this, I'm the person responsible to do so. So I would choose the country that can help me there. So Portugal became the country that I speak the language. Then my parents live in Portugal. So then with my parents living in Portugal, then I could feel that I'm reuniting with my most important value, family. So giving the chance to my kids to have a relationship with their grandparents, so I can come to be a support to my family in a personal level. And at the same time, I could facilitate the development of Gracie Barra in the school level, because Portugal is the biggest connection with Brazil. And then Brazil is the biggest quantity of black belts in the world. And then I could be a facilitator for other people that would like to live the dream of Jiu-Jitsu, and I could help them reach opportunities by building that bridge between Brazil, Portugal, and Gracie Barra, and then from Gracie Barra in Portugal to the rest of Europe. So it's coming from a mentality of helping and support, and continue to do exactly what I have been doing in Nottingham for so long, which is to help my students to achieve what I have, which is to live from Jiu-Jitsu, which is to benefit from the lifestyle, to help other people on the process. Because if you just do something that only benefits yourself, it's not sustainable. It's all about a win-win. Yeah. We know what Jiu-Jitsu does for people. I can see what it does to Irian. I can see what it does for many other kids and to the adults and men and women that are suffering with mental illnesses, depression, stress. People who comes over to the school because they feel like they wanted to get healthier, if for whatever reason, mentally, physically, and be part of something. And I know the positivity that brings to people's life, and that awareness, it shone a light on my purpose. And that where it connected, because that's when I said earlier today that purpose is much bigger. So when you actually have a passion and you know what you want to do and you're really committed to that, you make that a reality. And through that reality of doing your passion, you can really find fulfillment. But you're only going to really feel like you're in the right place when it aligns back to purpose, because you can't just do continuously that hard for so long if not something greater. Yeah. And that is something about the human life feels fulfillment and be happy with yourself when you actually are positive to others, when you actually help others.
Absolutely.
We are community beings. We are,
it's the energy, isn't it? It's all to do with the energy of what you're giving out, because that's something I've noticed with yourself. You give. Today, prime example, you've got a window, a very tight window to get to Coventry before you go off to do obviously your next seminar or meeting, whatever you have. But you're giving me this time in order to do this podcast, and I believe in like that energy is just, you're constantly, that's just who you are. Ever since I've known you, since I've been a kid, you're always giving. Doesn't matter how hectic your schedule is. I still remember in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I'm talking like 2005, 6, when you were so fixated on competing, but you always gave your time out to people to help and do this. And that's just you and your nature. And that I believe that's why you're attracting this energy.
Yeah, well. I feel in my heart, like I always felt incredibly well when I made a difference.
Yeah.
Positively, when I was helping someone to achieve something they couldn't do before, and when I understood that I could do this in the subject that I've been specialized myself all my life. When I realized that jiu-jitsu is much bigger than the tournaments I was competing for. When I realized there's a much bigger cause.
When did you realize all that?
I started to really feel that is more to it. On the mid to late 20s.
Okay.
I started to feel like, because I was young and fresh and I didn't relate to a lot of people because I felt confident. I felt the drive. I felt like I was healthy, achieving. I never felt like I was living the jiu-jitsu lifestyle. So I didn't know what it is not to have.
Makes sense.
So I just felt like it's just who I am. And most people must feel like me. And there was this ignorance of my age. When I started to mature a little and realize the struggles of life, including the challenges that I had, and I realized what benefits jiu-jitsu is bringing to my personal life, to my mental health, because there were low moments. Yeah. And jiu-jitsu were the thing that kept me bouncing up.
Sure.
And I started to realize by experience to see the effect that was happening to other people. And I started to really listen to the stories, and I started to realize the responsibility I had, because people came to me expecting support.
Yes.
And I realized that if I have something to give, I'm going to give, and if it's helping, I'm going to do.
Absolutely.
So I had to be selfless and think about others, and that made me feel that I was doing the right thing.
Was this after becoming a parent?
Potentially, it was around about that. Empathy started to happen, recognizing the challenges of hurdles of being a father and a husband, and life. As you get older, you see the struggles of life. You see that that is not easy, and I can see how people struggle. But that's where another thing I say for those who are struggling, man, connect with positive people.
100%.
Find people that care. Find people, and also remember, you can also contribute. Just because you're having a hard time doesn't mean that you're not a contributor.
Yeah.
You can be somebody who struggles and contributes and feel better for it. Because in many situations, I know that I am contributing, but sometimes I am struggling. And then when I realize that I'm contributing, I stop struggling. Having my tough moments. So because I feel my life matters. I feel the
purpose again. It comes back to purpose. Yeah.
It comes back to purpose. So nowadays, sometimes I'm working a lot on the back offices of things and on the background. And sometimes you can be less engaged on the direct contact with people.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't see the impact directly if you're always on the background creating things. But you only need to stop, watch around, and see what is the impact of your actions. And you not do this because you want them to know. You just need to know inside of your heart that you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and you just do it and then it become an arrow, right? You just shoot positivity, and then hopefully other people feel it and replicate to others, and not necessarily to you back. It's just the right thing. And that's one of the things I wondered, like before I used to be very dedicated to my students, and maybe that student leave your school.
Yeah.
And you feel betrayed. It hurts your heart. You give so much of yourself and suddenly choose not to. It's like almost like you gave your heart to your love, and your love just cheats on you and bye-bye. It feels very much like that. And then, does it mean you're going to stop loving?
No.
Does it mean that I'm stopping supporting the people around me because the one that didn't appreciate or didn't give back to me? So why am I doing that in the first place? Because I want that recognition, or is it because it's the right thing? And that changed everything. So I want to be a positive influence in the world. I want to do positive things. I want to help myself as well as helping others, because I'm not going to be thinking it's only about charity, give. It's about us trying to do great things, positive, that can help others and ourselves. Even when somebody does a charity, they do it because they feel good about doing the charity and still trying to do something good for them. So I think we need to be selfish and selfless at the same time. Thinking about, because it's normal to worry about yourself and achieve things yourself, but you have a choice. You can have a choice of doing things for yourself that impact others, right? And then I think this is a win-win. It's the win-win is key. So then I feel this is something that really connects with my purpose, because I always felt I want to be somebody who helps, who facilitates to someone. And I have my moral values very clear, and then I feel like happy about this fact that I have this opportunity and this platform to do these great things, while I'm also helping myself, my family, and my friends, and then I feel fulfilled, really do. I put my head on the pillow. My conscience is like clear. I have good thoughts and good things in my heart, and I sleep every night, feeling great about what's going on.
But what you realize, it goes back to, we were talking about energy a second ago. We were just talking about like the energy that you give, you contribute. You created your platform with all your students who are now professors and school learners, and they're now passing down exactly what's been taught from yourself to them, and they're passing it down to all their students, and then that's how the
and Marcel Carlos to me
above you,
and it's like this is what we call keeping the legacy alive. We can do say that in jiu-jitsu, but that is bigger, right?
Absolutely,
because it's much bigger than just jiu-jitsu. Is about focus on really being a good person.
100%.
Being a good person.
Core values. Comes back to the
it
core
goes
value.
back to this. Be a good person.
Absolutely, 100%. Couldn't agree more. And that's why, like, leadership for me, people get misled by what I mean by leadership. Leadership is someone which you're currently doing right now in the next chapter of your life, but you've done it there in here in the UK in Nottingham, where you've led by the front, and now you're doing the exact same. People think leaders all about dictating and doing this, saying this and doing this and giving orders. It's not. I don't believe that's not leadership. That's more of a general, shall I say. Leadership is where you're leading from the front. You're setting an example. You are the example. And you've done that with your school in Nottingham, where you were one of the first schools in Nottingham to be, correct me if I'm wrong, is it called premium? Like where, school. Like a premium school where you're setting the standards. And I remember seeing your school for the first time in Nottingham, your second school, sorry, in Nottingham. And I was like, wow, this is like a 5-star standard. Does that make sense? And it's like now you're going across, but yours is the only one at the time. Then after that, in 2000, after you opened in January of 2018, all of a sudden, by leadership, by the example you've set, every other school is slowly becoming like GB Nottingham as such. Does that make sense? And I can see you doing the same with Portugal, in Lisbon, with what you're creating there. Linked with that, you've taken not a step back. You've not taken a step back, but you mentioned you're not doing it from the front, as in you're not on the mats as much in terms of teaching, because you've got obviously professors in there already. How does that feel to you? Because obviously when you did it in Nottingham, you was on the mats, you was leading on the mats. And how does that feel, not having to do it, but you saying you're doing it now from the back office, because obviously you're not, I just want to be clear, you're not only opening up schools, but you're doing GB Wear in Europe as well, which you're created that as well. So how does that feel doing it?
That's a really good question, Pindi, because as you said, you can either, like if I'm still teaching, but not to the volume I used to.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that really shines a light into the differences between leading from the climb versus leading from the top of the mountain. That is a powerful thing about someone who is doing it with you. That's a powerful thing. Is that person you're climbing together, you don't know the path quite right, but you're going with everyone, you're trying to find a way, and you're going, you're pushing, and you drive, and you help people to figure out what you're figuring out, and it's one person who climbs and leads from the climb. And that is the element, and from leading from the top of the mountain. In some elements of my life, I do lead from the climb. Right? I develop in a school. I'm still running a school. I'm managing a school. I'm still teaching in a school. Proportions are different.
Yes.
But then also, I try to empower others, lead my team, and help them become better leaders. Because I'm actually working in leadership. I'm trying to lead from the climb. And whenever you're in different stages of your climb, you lead in different directions, and you're helping people to achieve different things. So I feel like in this stage of my life, I'm involved in so many different schools that I cannot be in every school. So I cannot be the technician of everything. But I'm helping people see something that I have done, and I still do it in a different proportion. I'm trying to help them to achieve the experiences that I actually got.
Yeah.
Sharing everything I know.
Yes.
Right? And trying to improve myself on those skills too.
So can I ask you something? Like, if I was to ask you right this second, I know what the answer is going to be, because we've touched upon this. But when you first had to make that decision, maybe this was probably in Nottingham. This was in Nottingham, where you had to be like, man, I can't do what I'm doing, where I'm teaching all. How easy or how difficult was it to make that decision, to be like, man, I gotta take a step back. I gotta put in, I don't know, Professor Sean in to cover these classes, or I've got to put in someone that, like, I know if I was to ask you now, we know what the answer is going to be, because we know that. But your mindset back then, how difficult was it, or how easy was it to make that decision?
The decision is one of the things I've learned in a very early stages. I opened my first school, is that if I made that school only about me, it will only be me. I knew very early that if I wanted to create a strong project, I needed to help others to progress through the system, through the ranks. And I always manage my school helping other people to become references in the school. And the point is, I think a lot of people struggle with their own egos, because they feel like sometimes by allowing others to step in and take leadership roles inside of the project that you are managing, that shadows away your leadership. And I very, very early, I recognized this, because I have seen experiences from people in the past.
And when did you reckon, when this is in your first school?
Yeah, it's like a very early stage. I already knew it, because I spoke to very well experienced professors in Jiu Jitsu across the world. I have opportunities to meet and talk to many of them. When I'm on the beginning, that's why the importance of experience. Sometimes people don't underestimate the power of experience and people who have done it before. I think today is different now, but they know the story. They've been there before. It is what it is today because people did things before, and they are evolving with the process. And so I listened to people who already manage and run schools. And one of them told me, never make your school, they even use the word strong, like, don't be a slave of your school. Like, because if you have to teach every class every single time, when you take a holiday for 2 weeks, your students don't come and train. So the school cannot be sustainable if you are the only source of knowledge and the only active technician of the school. And then sorry. Yeah. And when I understood this, that was a very simple comment that I tried to elevate myself onto. As I developed, as I matured, as I grew my schools, I realized something much bigger, which is a mission statement of helping others achieve what I've got. I said that this a few times because this is the only one I can see the project growing in the size that is possible for others to live from jiu-jitsu. Especially in the reality, nobody lived from jiu-jitsu in 2012. I was very early, I was already thinking, I need to make this work in a way that other people can live from this too. So I was hiring the professors, and at that time, nobody paid properly the instructors. I was the first, and Professor Neil, I actually hired him. I was as an employee, as an employee, like in 2013, 14, something like that, when I just started GB Nottingham 2.0.
Yes. So that would have been
2012, 13. I opened in 2012, but I was already in Nottingham 11, hiring the hall. But then in 2013, I was already running a school and already, hiring like full-time employee, and I'm already looking for the next person to work in the school. Because I knew I needed to really expand, and I couldn't be making everything about myself, because otherwise I'll be doing everything, and then I can't do everything good. And that's why since the beginning, I have been using this mindset of helping others to take it. And I was okay that things would not be the way I wanted to be, because it was not me doing it. So, but what we work so hard for is to provide to the whole team a set of guidelines, mentality, method of training. This is Gracie Barra does so well. So Gracie Barra really helped me see in the importance of having clear views, clear vision, clear method that everybody that works in that school can follow, and they all can do a good work under those standards, and that I can elevate myself out of doing everything myself.
Brilliant.
I think that is a massive change, and I never had a problem with doing that.
I wouldn't say you're lucky, but it's really good to hear that you noticed that early on in your career, because a lot of people, sometimes it's never too late, but some people will notice it. Like I've spoken to a lot of non-Gracie Barra school learners, and they're still going through that now, and I'm like, wow, you guys are in your 40s and 50s and you're still struggling with that now. And it's like, it's sad to see, and you try and advise them, and you try, but you hit the nail on the head. Unfortunately, with that generation, it's a lot of pride and a lot of ego that's involved. Yeah, they feel that they can't let go. Because I believe, do you know who Mark Wright is? Mark Wright, he was a the BBC Apprentice that comes on the apprenticeship program.
Mm-hmm.
He was the winner in 2015, I believe it was. And I was listening to one of his podcasts last week, and he said he runs his business and he lets all his employees know, and they work on the number 6 bus routine. That is basically, if he was to get hit by a bus tomorrow and he's no longer here, can the business still run?
Yeah, this is basically it.
Yeah.
And then that comes into my mindset at that time to create, I'm not from Nottingham, but I am in Nottingham. Am I going to be Nottingham forever? I knew that probably not. But I want to be there and making count every moment that I was there to create something that remains. Because I knew it was a service to the community. It made a difference in people's life. It goes back to my purpose. If I had no purpose, I would just do something that benefits me. When I leave, it shuts down, I build something somewhere else. You only do about me again. But I wanted to sustain. And this is the mentality of create something bigger than yourself, right? And that's constantly in my heart. Like everything I was trying to achieve and do is to create and inspire my students to love jiu-jitsu and to be kind, to be caring with the students, so they can actually feel comfortable and so they can develop themselves, so that eventually they can do exactly what I was doing and be the arrow so they can do now for their own students.
Yeah.
And you cannot lead without, just by saying. You have to live it. You have to live it every day.
Yeah,
and it's not only sometimes. It's
all the
constantly.
It's a 24-hour
thing.
7 days a week.
Because you cannot fake it.
No.
You cannot fake leadership. People know it and they feel it in their energy.
And linked with that, I really want to touch upon it. It's not a 9 to 5, 5 day a week thing. It's a 7 day week, 24 hours a day. You're living, eating, breathing it. Your whole lifestyle becomes it. And that's why you are in the position you're in today. And that's why, in my opinion, you're one of the greatest leaders out there. In my opinion, like I'll put you. I told you to listen to the Gary Neville podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it's like I'll put you in that level of like that sort of leadership where he was talking about his mentor, who was Sir Alex Ferguson, who's the manager of Man United, blah blah blah, and about the hours and sacrifices that he will be putting in. Sir Alex Ferguson is known to be one of the greatest football managers of all time. He had the European Champions League final against Barcelona. They lost. Man United. They lost in 2009. The following morning, so this is in London, and Gary Neville touched upon it. The following morning, Sir Alex Ferguson at 6 o'clock in the morning was in his office working and drawing up a plan. And there's been some times, and I'm putting you on that same pedestal there because you are that leader, and I believe you're one of the greatest leaders out there because you do the same thing. It doesn't matter what time and day it is. There'll be sometimes I'll be messaging you on WhatsApp, and you'll be like, I'm just in the office, and it'll be like at stupid o'clock at night, or it'll be stupid o'clock in the morning, and you're putting in the hours because you're truly living, eating, and breathing, and believing in what your mission is. And now you're doing that. You're doing that in a different country out there and proving to the world that it's doable and it's absolutely achievable, that you can do what you're doing. And just want to say a massive, huge well done and congratulations, because it's great to see it. Have you noticed any differences of trying to not replicate, but doing the same mission in a different country? I know you speak the same language and everything, but have you noticed any major differences, or is it pretty much kind of similar?
First of all, thank you for the kind words, Pini. That putting me in the same standard of someone who's done incredible. I feel like I have so much to grow and develop, but I listen to the podcast and I identify myself with his work ethic, and I identify myself with his heart and passion for football. And I feel like I am very passionate, very, very, very dedicated to the art of jiu-jitsu and to help people through the process. And I feel, never know, one day I will contribute something more special, and I'm just keep my head down and I do my work. I just want to do something good. And like you said about, starting in Portugal, and I just do exactly the same thing, no change. I was actually having a conversation over the phone with one of the professors in the school in Portugal, in Campo Lige. His name is Professor Elias. And it's exactly what I was talking to him, And he basically got to know me not long ago, but I'm just there giving him a call and finding out what are the challenges that he has. And then when he was refurbishing his school, I showed up and I was there helping building furniture for him. And the funny thing is, I didn't ask, but then, Victor, I know you're building the school now. Your school is getting finished, and how are you? And then he basically, man, I'm here building this. Tomorrow's the opening. I'll be there. He came over, spent until 5 o'clock in the morning in the school, making the place nice with me. And that is the sort of thing that sometimes you see, that it is that community that you build when you are putting yourself out there and you're really trying your best with what you've got, with the time that you have to be present and to be making a difference in whichever field. If it's going to be to clean that mat, it's going to be to give a suggestion about something, or you share an experience about something else, or you help them solve a particular problem. You need to be, I feel like I'm ready to do whatever it takes to help and facilitate the development of Gracie Barra schools in that region by supporting and sharing my experience with all of the people to see, hoping that it would be the thing that helps them to achieve the successes that we have achieved here. And it's not to say that I'm the owner of the truth. It's the opposite. I just want to share everything that I've got. And I have tested a lot of those things and worked. So I'm confident that what we can offer, it is going to make a difference. But then I'm not dictating, I'm just sharing ideas. And I feel like this is what I'm doing, what I do here right now I'm here in the UK, traveling across the UK, talking to the school owners, professors, and I'm just sharing my passion, my ideas about how to manage an academy, and even listening to their struggles and be there for them. I understand your struggle. I've been in that struggle, and but don't worry about it. Let's think about this. This is the positive thing, and that's sometimes that's what people really want. They want to be heard, and I want to be there for them. And then I feel hopefully the community can see that energy, and that energy is what really brings together honesty, truth, right? Be truthful and be passionate, right? Be someone who's there for the good and for the bad. And then, and try to bring people together, see through differences, right? Overcome forgiveness. When people sometimes say silly things among each other, and help them to feel like, be grateful, forgive. Let's go over. We're bigger than issues. Sometimes we spend our lives sometimes thinking about the tiny little things that are negative.
Yes.
And then we judge people so easily and quickly.
Yeah.
And
it just escalates.
And escalates for silly reasons.
And energy goes.
And then it's so sad to hear that people are willing to make quick opinions and lose the faith in the goodness of people. And I say, oh man, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. And then you just, you have made mistakes too.
Everyone.
So,
every single person.
Man, just take it light, forgive, give chances. And this is sometimes what it takes to grow a big family. 100%. And this is what I feel like I'm doing in Portugal. I'm actually entering the Gracie Barra Portugal family, because I'm part of the same team, but they were there before me.
Of course.
So I'm not thinking that I'm going there and take over. I'm thinking, no. I want to be of help.
Yeah.
Let me add value to the team. I want to be here for you.
Absolutely.
And that's my attitude the whole time.
What's your plans with the whole of Portugal? Because at the moment you're in Lisbon. What would be your plans? Where do you? What's the plan of action with Portugal? Is it to expand it and do what you've done here in the UK and grow, and with other professors coming in? I think you touched upon you're going to get other professors from Brazil and all this that.
Yeah, number one, I feel like my goal in Portugal is to really sustain my school in Portugal. Make sure that school is a perfect example of Gracie Barra, that is providing opportunities for the community. And we have a project of 5 schools in 5 years that are managed by me, this is my goal to implement those 5 schools. But then the reason why I want to build those 5 schools is to be able to show to the communities that Jiu-Jitsu can be a project that you can live from.
Absolutely.
Which it may be a reality in the UK, but it's not a reality in many countries. Many people don't believe they can actually make a career and live only from Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
And
I
I
still see it as a hobby as such, don't
it's because sometimes the Jiu-Jitsu never really developed to the kind of standard that they actually can leave their jobs.
Yeah.
They still have to do 2 jobs and have the school.
Yeah, which is sad. It's
difficult,
yeah.
And it can be difficult because the communities are different and the Jiu-Jitsu, the culture is different.
Yeah.
And then it was like that in the UK too.
It was. I was just about to say. And
that's what I said about knowing sometimes the journey, because we experienced, we can help people see the Jiu-Jitsu in a different way. And the way I got to know Jiu-Jitsu in a different way, maybe others can do. And then hopefully we want to help the Jiu-Jitsu community in Portugal and in Europe, that you can make a full-time school and you can live good from Jiu-Jitsu and doing good things in line with our purpose, right? To help people in a process. And this is something very special. So that's my goal. My goal is to establish the schools that I'm going to open, and I hopefully want to support other schools on reaching the similar standard. And the Jiu-Jitsu can be, I think that the whole community, not just the people in Jiu-Jitsu, but the whole Portugal population can look jiu-jitsu different, and they can see themselves training. No, it's not for me anymore. I'm too old for this, or I don't want my kid train jiu-jitsu because I'm worried that the professor is gonna, is a fighter, is fighting in the street, or we want to be able to have jiu-jitsu into the standard that we know jiu-jitsu can be.
Absolutely, because I just want to touch upon that, because like I said, I keep referring back to why I wanted you here today, Victor, is because I want you to inspire the listeners out there of following their dreams and their passions and really pursuing that. But for the listeners that aren't and don't understand what jiu-jitsu is, I know there's majority of my listeners are a part of the jiu-jitsu community, so that it's not a problem. But the ones that are not, and they may not have ever tried jiu-jitsu, what could you advise them, and how could you advise them, shall I say, on doing what you've done in your career path with terms of jiu-jitsu? Obviously, if it's me, I believe in everything that Master Carlos Gracie says in terms of everyone in the world did jiu-jitsu, the world being a much better place where we live in right now. But people have still got to get off the sofa to try jiu-jitsu. Do you understand where I'm trying to come from? So what would you try and advise the people that have still not tried jiu-jitsu, or are not willing to try jiu-jitsu? How can they make and follow that path, shall I say? What would you advise them? And how would you advise them to become or achieve their goals, what they're trying to achieve?
So one of the things I could tell for the people there that never really started jiu-jitsu before, and don't have any influences or never thought martial arts something they want to do, it's always with the mentality of give it a try, right? I think that's the first step, give it a try. But I think all the things that we're discussing here, they can be done in anything, right? Jiu-jitsu, it's a way that we get to experience the world of supporting each other, commitment to learn, to become a better version of yourself, be in an environment that people are motivated and driven. And that's when I say that it's not the only way that you can achieve those things and success and purpose. People out there, they need to find what is that makes them tick, and then follow that. But if you're intrigued about jiu-jitsu, and if you feel jiu-jitsu could be a very positive thing for you, and that's where I believe it would be, and I think jiu-jitsu is an incredible martial art. And for those who trains and begin, and they realize how jiu-jitsu expands into our lives in many different directions. And I could say, look for a school, research in your area where there is a school. The Gracie Barra schools are all over the UK. Make sure that the school that you're looking for are inclusive for everyone, and they're welcoming to everyone, and they're willing to take beginners. The good way to understand if the school has a strong fundamental program, right? You look for schools that have a very solid fundamental program, which is like not all together at once, because sometimes you mix different levels, right? Like black belts, purple belts training with a beginner. So it's hard to define, I'm going to help the beginner, or do I help the students that are with me every day? And it's always hard for the teachers to manage the two things. So a school that is very well organized, that has a very strong fundamental program that you can learn every day, and you have different options, good schedule, close to your house, and that is so you can make it easy for yourself, that experience, and give it a go. And it doesn't matter who you are, what body type, what gender, what religion, whoever you are, kid, adult, senior, it's never too late. Just go in. We saw that now not long ago, a black belt be given to a 84-year-old.
Yeah, I saw that. The lady.
Yeah, there's a lady in Gracie Barra in the United States. So it's never too late.
Absolutely.
You can just get on and do it. And for those who are looking for a change of life, I think during the pandemic, it was really a good time for people to really evaluate themselves, what they want to do for themselves. And you mentioned a few times about people who are in jobs that they're not happy. This is a perfect thing, to really reflect on it. Take chances, and build strategies to be able to initiate and spend more time doing what you love. But there's gonna be a moment you have to jump.
Yeah, you gotta take that. You gotta take it. You gotta take it. You
And
gotta do
then
it.
don't and have no fear, And I think when you have no fear, and you just give your all,
Yeah.
it will just happen.
No, that's amazing. And then, like with yourself, Victor, like you've done a lot for a lot of people out there. You've led the way. Again, going back to leadership, you had your own personal goals as an athlete. You had your own personal goals as a business entrepreneur, and you're leading the way. What's next for you? What? I know. I can't. I think I know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from you. Like, what are you looking to achieve next? Because you've got a endless list of achievements. But what's next for you?
For me, there are moments that you can look into do more, and there are some times in your life that you need to do better everything that you have. And a moment I am, as I said, a lot of the things I do is surrounded by Gracie Barra, facilitator, right? So I'm like supporting the entities, making sure everything is sustainable. My plan is to continue to create opportunities inside the team, to be able to make each one of the entities well established and sustainable, providing opportunities for professionals of Gracie Barra. I want to be able to see, I'm building the multiple school project, but that's one thing that I am really enjoying at the moment, which is to live a life that is well balanced, that are professionally stable, that are personally stable, that I'm living a life that's set up to continue for the rest of my life. Like starting to think about my life, you live only once. And I don't feel like I want to take any other job or any other goal like professionally. I'm already in the place I want to be. I don't want to be anywhere else. I want to just to see it through everything that we have done. This is a life's work. I want to be doing exactly what I want to do that I do now, but I want to continue to grow older, healthier. I want to be active, doing jiu-jitsu in a daily basis, doing my surfing from time to time. I want to be able to just live a good balanced life between work, training, and family and friends and then personal life. I think this is where I want to be, in a few. Now I'm already playing that role now, and I want to continue to see this through. When sometimes I've been looking for the next thing. I was not looking for the next thing. That's the thing. I always plan to grow and develop, expand. But I was not technically, I really want to manage GBWare. I want to work towards managing GBWare. I really want to be the regional leader of Gracie Barra. So there we go. I want to be a regional leader. No, it was none of those things. They were happening to me because.
But why do you think that is?
I basically, I just want to do as good as I can do everything in my life. I'm committed to this. I want to be the best competitor I can be.
I understand that, but why do you think these things came to you? What's in your head? Why do you think that is? Because I think I've got the idea of it, but what do you think it is?
Man, I think number one, I feel like I have the right for, like, let's think about like what it takes to develop the entities and develop the team. Is you got to think about others. And I feel like I always think about others. This is who I am. I'm always thinking. I have empathy, and I look, and then I can try. I want to help, and automatically, if you want to build something, and you're only thinking about yourself, it can't be done. So I feel like somehow the leaders of Gracie Barra that put me in a position of developing what I'm doing, probably they saw on me somebody who is highly committed, not afraid of hard work. I'm looking long term. I don't need to win now. I don't need now. I just want to create something special, but I'm willing to put the work for a long time. And I feel like I'm a competent person. And everything that I do, I try to do the best I can with the right intentions. And I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. I get it wrong all the time. I make wrong decisions. But I'm trying to get them right, and I'm learning from my mistakes, and I'm trying to improve. And I'm a trustworthy person. Marcel Carlos can have, conscience clear that he knows that I'm doing the best I can for the right reasons to develop and support the team here in the European continent and in the UK. I have been doing this the day one. So when sometimes you do good at one job, sometimes people look for you to take responsibilities for other jobs. That's why I say, and you do it for the right reason, not because you want fame, because you want to just win you, and then because you want more credibility, I never was searching for attention, credibility. I just want to do what's the right thing. I want to just grow and make it right for Gracie Barra, not for Victor. And I know, and I just made this my mission to help Gracie Barra. So Gracie Barra is what I work for, and I make this my life. And then with that, opportunities, and people put trust, and that the trust builds something, right? And then I end up being the person who was in a position to run, because
It's great.
it just happened naturally.
Because I was thinking this, because I believe in like the spiral of the universe. This is what I was going into, because ever since from you competing, when you opened up GB Nottingham and everything, you've always given. Received a bit, but always give. You always gave and always gave. And I believe, like, obviously you made that decision, that conscious decision of stop competing, retiring as such. Don't like use the word retire, but stop competing. And then that's where things started falling into place. And then you start getting these opportunities, and then before you know it, and I think it comes back to, goes right back to what we started saying, giving. The energy. Does that make sense? It's like
Give back.
Giving back. And once you give back and you're feeling good about giving and helping and improving that individual over there, before you know it, things are falling into place for you.
And that's the thing, when you have gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, I'm really grateful for everything Gracie Barra has done for me. And if I know I've got something great, I want to share it, pass it on. I want to make sure I give my best to help others achieve the same. When you're selfless that way, and automatically things started going in the right direction. And then when I stopped competing, I just switched focus. I put the focus on actually dedicate my whole time to help the team. It was helping the team while I was competing, and then later became helping the team. And then because you're so dedicated to a particular goal, and you're not measuring. I'm not measuring. What got to be done? Carrying boxes, I'll carry boxes. If I need to pick up furniture, I'll pick up furniture. Build the furniture. Whatever needs to be done to get the team to move forward and to advance, I'm doing it. And I'm not afraid of hard work, because that's all I've done my whole life. So then, and I feel like this is what ended up happening to me. Like, the opportunities was coming to my directions, because I was willing to do whatever it takes to make that thing succeed. And I was not trying to do it for now. I wanted to build something because it didn't exist. When I started working Gracie Barra, the Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu office didn't exist.
Yeah, it did.
That didn't exist. It was just like an idea. So
is that something you created? Or is
Well,
that something that's created?
like in Europe, right? So basically,
Yeah.
Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu was developing in the United States, and
yeah.
they became a franchise model, and then eventually in Brazil, they became really strong. And in Europe, it was just everybody doing their own thing, and without necessarily having an office that is supporting the community in this area. And then when I started working, I remember the day Professor Flavio Almeida and Professor Marcio Feitosa, and they spoke to me whether I wanted to be a regional collaborator or regional director, they call it at the time, for Europe as a whole. And I said to them, I took the chance, but I said I'm a competitor and I am doing different things. That they were very supportive to my journey, but they really connected with me, because when I was having the conversation to them, I told them, hey, and I would love to see Gracie Barra more professional and more organized in my region. I even brought like to the team like my for those who doesn't know, the Márcio Feitosa, Professor Flávio, they're like a big part of what Gracie Barra is today globally, big supporters to Master Carlos. They are like on the front line working hard to make this happen. And I was trying to share with them what I have done. I created a GB Kids program, like a whole curriculum, all the belts I had written when I was about 22 years old. I written because when I was teaching Gracie Barra Birmingham, when I was teaching a lot of the kids' classes and there was no structure. So I created one. And
That was you.
what we do today is not what I did, but I created
Right.
one myself.
Oh, okay. Wow.
No, Gracie Barra
Yeah.
had created one and I didn't know at that time.
Okay.
But I created my own.
Your own, yeah.
And when I was talking to them about making a professional school, I thought, wow, I can see other martial arts schools so well organized, and we have an incredible art, but I don't feel like we're as organized.
Yes.
We have an incredible art, but it's not organized. It's not really professionally delivered. And I was having my own ideas on how to achieve that. So automatically we sunk in. Like we were looking in the same view, and the same mindset.
Yep.
And then I was having this conversation, but there's one thing that concerns me. I never want to compromise on the integrity of the art. I don't want to make sure the jiu-jitsu is still real,
Strong. Yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
And you know what? At that time, I didn't even understand that there was actually an ICP because it was so early. There was a personal ICP. They have to be there in California, but I never know. The ICP is the instructor certification program to certified instructors, but we didn't know it was like 04 since I moved to the UK. Like that was 06, 07, right? And we were there doing our own thing without no link because Gracie Barra only established in California in 2006. They were developing and organizing then. So by the time 2010, 2011, that's when that conversation happened. And I was talking to them about the ideas that I had on how to professionalize, to have a program director, to have phone calls, and to talk about a nice, strong method, to talk about business practices. And then we linked together, but never wanted to compromise on the integrity of Jiu-Jitsu. And that's when they said, Victor, that's what we stand for. Our 3 core values is brotherhood, stick together, help each other out. And then integrity to the art, keeping the legacy alive. Make sure our Jiu-Jitsu remains pure. And then maintain quality. And that's exactly what we do. We're protecting Jiu-Jitsu. We're helping Jiu-Jitsu develop. And we want to develop the value development. We want to be able to do this great thing all over the world. And you're helping us develop. So that was my role. That was straight away I was assigned to be. And I never went there to get anything. I went there to share that I wanted to help implement those ideas into Jiu-Jitsu in Gracie Barra, in where I am from. And they already had everything worked out, but I just never had the chance to connect. And then when I connected, then I realized, oh my God, I didn't realize all this is happening, but they saw that I was...
Was that when you went physically over there?
They were there, yeah, in 2011. I have a photo of the meeting, and then they assigned a contractor, a regional collaborator, the regional director there in 2011.
Wow.
And then when I came home, I said, okay, Victor, your first job as a regional director is to make your school a success story under 100% of Gracie Barra method and vision. That was my first role.
Wow.
And then I was an athlete at that time.
So trying to achieve that.
So that's when began. That's exactly, remember, this is 2011.
So this is
To know 2011 when it is, I lost everything.
Mansfield.
It was the moment I lost everything.
So did this happen after Mansfield? When you
While I lost everything.
Wow. There you go.
I was there on the period where things are just rocking down.
Man, what's going on?
They believed in me when I had nothing.
That is insane.
I didn't even have a school.
So what's going on in your mind right now? Like when that was happening, when you went to America, you signed
It's
a contract,
beyond.
you come back.
It's not about who you are then. It's about who you know you can become.
Yeah.
It's all about what you know you got
drive.
in yourself to give.
Yeah.
It's about what's in your heart, what's in your mind. It's not your current state.
That is insane.
And then I knew that I had more in me
Yeah.
I had fire. I always had fire. I had this fire that I didn't know where to put. And I was not guided. I was not mentored. I was just this ball of energy,
Doing your thing.
doing my thing, want to do as hard,
yeah.
but I was not guided into really well structured directions because I was just learning on the go.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between grow and develop with mentors, surrounding yourself with the right people versus just rattling with
that makes
with
perfect
everything.
sense. So, like with the people out there now, sometimes look at your surroundings, look at your influences. So the ones that are struggling out there, just listening to this, like I know you're my guest on this podcast, but I'm learning so much just from hearing every conversation I have with Victor. I always leave thinking, man, I feel like I've always learned one new thing or 10 million new things. But there is a prime example. Sometimes you guys and girls that are struggling out there, look at your influences around you, look at your surroundings. Something that I've taken from this is making sure you're always connected and surrounded with the right people and the right energy around you.
That's so true. So true.
Important. And
Yeah,
you had that with Professor Flavio.
100%. And then it goes beyond. I think we underestimate the impact that the people around us cause on us. Like, if you surround yourself with people that are negative and complaining every day, I guarantee you that you're gonna start complaining every day.
Yeah, you become that person. Yeah.
So you have the power to put it in a positive way or in the other way. Yeah. So if you, for example, if you want to become a professional athlete,
be around professional athletes and train like one and act like one and live like one. Literally.
If you want to become a great leader, surround yourselves with great leaders.
Yeah.
If you want to be a great businessman, surround yourself with great businessmen.
Absolutely.
Whatever it is that you want to become, you got to surround yourself with people. And doesn't mean that you like becoming friends with people by like only because you are interested in things. It's not like being somebody who is interested in what people give to you. It's a very different thing. And it's be willing to learn, to share, to be somebody who is serving too, and only there, supporting, be in the environment, and be grateful to be in the environment. Put yourself out there, and show how much passion and love you have for that thing you want to create and learn. I don't know any successful professional in any department and anything that is not willing to appreciate somebody who's keen to learn, somebody's keen to absorb and contribute. You think alike. You learn to think alike. And that's basically what it is. Like every person that helped me on the mats, they received me well. And I appreciated being there. And I'm grateful for the opportunities they provide me. And therefore, that is a bond, that is a gratitude, that is respect, that is everything built around us. And I feel like it's a lot of people out there that aim and don't know how to get to places. And I think it begins with just searching and trying. And really, if you are from the music world, you know people in music, so surround people with the positive people. I think that is in that same world, there are negative people and positive people as well.
Make sure with the right
whatever it is the field that you are in.
We have it in Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah. And then you have people who are that constantly complain about what people do. This school is doing that. This athlete is doing that. Man, focus on other people. Stop focus Stop focus on what other people are doing. That you don't agree with. Just focus on you doing the thing you think is the right thing. Try to grow yourself and don't stop looking for others. I get so frustrated when I hear the amount of people come to criticize others in front of me. I listen and I just go, I have no time for this. I don't want to be here wasting my time criticizing somebody or something.
Because something that you realize as well, the more you mature and growing older, how valuable is it? And a prime example, look at the windows we've got now. Does that look how valuable it is? And you don't want to.
And you want to be the best, the most impact of the time we have, right?
Yes, absolutely. We all get the same 24 hours, and we've got to make sure that we use it wisely.
And another thing, and a lot of people, if they don't feel motivated to do things. Sometimes I feel like a lot of people out there, because they're not motivated, they're like don't have this calling, they don't know themselves what they want to be, whatever. They get lazy about things. Hassle. I have to drive there. It's 3 hours drive. Don't know if I want to do that. No, not today. I'm gonna go train. You know what? It's a little difficult. I'm a little tired. I'm just gonna stay home. I'm gonna have a cup of tea. You know what? I'm gonna call in sick. How can you expect to grow and develop and achieve great things if whenever you feel a little bit off, you just call it off? If you want the result, you're willing to grind for it. You need to be a grinder. You can't achieve anything just being, I don't want to do this. Man, you gotta go, man. You gotta, dude. I'm here for 7 days in the UK, and every single day I had multiple responsibilities. I had my own regular meetings in the things I do every day, plus the add-ons to the regular things when I come to the UK. People I need to see, schools I need to visit, podcasts I need to do. And I'm not going to stop myself. I'm not going to say, Pini, I'm not going to go there today, Pini, because, I'm a bit... Well, who is this guy? It doesn't sound like me. I was like, no, Pindi, a podcast. Yeah, that means what does it mean for me? Why am I doing a podcast?
Yeah,
that is the first question.
Yeah,
what's the purpose? Why am I going to do this? And I always like to look at the big picture. It might be one person is going to be listening to this podcast, and something that we may have spoken about might just trigger.
Yeah,
it was worth my trip.
Definitely. 1000%.
And then at the same time, we are building momentum to something special.
Absolutely.
For you.
Yeah.
I want to see you succeed. I want to see you develop and continue to do what you're doing, because I know what you're doing is causing a positive impact.
Thank you. Thank you.
So then my contribution goes to you and what you do to others.
Spread it.
And if somebody heard something from me that impacted them from this podcast, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But this is looking in the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
And I feel like the more we think about bigger picture, we can make better actions and more conscious actions of today.
Yes, I completely 1000% agree. That's amazing. Victor, I want to ask this question because I know you as I've known you as an athlete, which you, in my opinion, in my eyes, is still are. I've known you as this incredible entrepreneur, which you're achieving great things worldwide, and you're one of the best leaders I've met, and the privilege I've known you as a great leader as well. How do you want to be known as? Because the reason I ask you that is I've listened to a few podcasts recently of professional footballers. The Gary Neville one, prime example. You've heard that one. He said when he retired from Manchester United, one of the greatest teams in the world at the time, he didn't want to be known as an ex-Man United player or an ex-footballer. That's why he's gone on to do all the things he's doing right now in the world. How do you want to be known as?
A great question. I just want to be known as someone who contributed to something very special. I want to be part of a positive influence to the world. And people remember me with a positive eyes. That somehow something I did or said or supported them on something good for them. And I was part of that positive change, helped them, contributed somehow. And when I'm maybe older or not even here anymore, that we did this for as many people as possible. Be a positive influence. And in the world, we are surrounded by positive and negative. And sometimes there's a lot of light on negative. And if more people feel like they can be a positive contributor, we can impact against that negative. And so the good things can surpass always. And I just want to be known as the person who helped, in the place that I had influence and impact. So, and then I feel like that is in jiu-jitsu, and whatever this takes me, and if I'm true to my purpose, whatever is going to happen is going to lead towards that, and I give my all, everything I've got, and I'm true to that, and then I'm happy with that. I'm like, I can't be anything else, right?
No, I think that's great. It's a great answer because you've set a standard. Does that make you've set a very high standard in the UK, and everyone that's linked and a network with yourself, they're now setting that example. You're now in Portugal, you're doing the same thing. And you've been the biggest contributor in terms of jiu-jitsu in the world. And it's so lovely to see how now jiu-jitsu has grown crazily in the UK, but worldwide. You were very recently, a couple of weeks ago, about less than a month ago, you were in Vegas at the ADCC. That for me, when I was watching it live stream on Instagram, and then when I realized it's actually online, and I started watching it on TV there, and seeing all those thousands of fans in the arena, that wouldn't happen 5 years ago. No. That wouldn't happen like a couple of years ago. And to see that now, and then I follow a lot of, as we all do, follow a lot of celebrities on Instagram, and we're seeing them, and they're live, and I didn't even realize they're at the ADCC, and they're like, hey, we're here, look what this is doing for jiu-jitsu, boom, they've spun it around, and it's the ADCC app. I was like, geez, that is insane. You got all these celebrities that are now promoting jiu-jitsu and now taking part in jiu-jitsu, and you may not realize this, but that's down to the contribution of everything that you've set. You've set that standard. Does that make sense? You've contributed towards that. Yeah, everyone that was with you as well.
Yeah, I think there's a thing, right? We all have been contributing to jiu-jitsu, all us competitors, all us leaders of jiu-jitsu organizations that providing the service of jiu-jitsu across the world. I have made my contribution so far to my region, to my small contribution in this area, because the world is really big place. There's thousands of people out there doing the same thing. It's a common work, as a work together, because the real thing is jiu-jitsu is real and truly helps and makes a difference.
Yeah.
And that is the real reason why so many celebrities and many people are focused on jiu-jitsu and benefiting from jiu-jitsu and sharing the good light, because it's impacting them positively. So I feel like through generations we have been developing this. I feel like I can talk as my generation and the generations before me and everybody in jiu-jitsu so far that led to where it is today. And this is very important for us to have this awareness that we are constantly writing history, and we are giving our contribution, and you can either give a positive contribution and a negative contribution.
Yes, absolutely. Goes back to that, yeah.
And so I feel like, yes, we all play a small part for the greater.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I'm honorable to and grateful for had the opportunity to live the jiu-jitsu lifestyle. And that's been since I'm 15 years old. I live the jiu-jitsu lifestyle. And I'm hoping to continue to,
keep on going with it.
Keep on going. And
how did it feel being in Vegas watching the ADCC? I know you were there for Barali's Hall of Fame, and that was an emotional moment in itself, and that was an achievement which goes far beyond what I can explain on this microphone. But how did it feel for you as an individual that's seen the struggles of jiu-jitsu right from the beginning to mainstream?
Yeah.
Bam.
It was crazy, because when I remember fighting in ADCC trials in Brazil, and I got third place on that trial, and I did actually the semifinal with Felipe Pena, and we had a great match, and I won my third place match. Then I went to the podium. Guess what? There was stacked up mats, jigsaw mats on the top of each other as the podium. That was the ADCC trials a few years ago. And to have seen Jiu-Jitsu and the ADCC always been a prestigious tournament, one is the main one, but it has never been this standard. But you can see that the organization now upgraded to a standard that is really putting Jiu-Jitsu into a mainstream. And we had people sitting in the arena for 12 hours and nobody was leaving. Do you ever see a football game that people spend 12 hours there? No. So we had 12 hours of people glued to their seat watching, and the organization stepped up how they how they gave the experience, with all the fireworks and the digital content, videos, and the how the athletes came in, how the crowd engaged, and the standard of the competition. What an amazing standard we're living today, right? And as the athletes are on another level, they are so well trained, so prepared, and they're all exciting to watch. And this was a gift to the jiu-jitsu world. Jiu-jitsu, it's really allowing people to look different to our sport.
Yeah.
And I think they're just setting the tone for the future.
Yeah, for sure. It set the standard. It's definitely 100% set the standard, because now we're getting people walking in, even here, and they after watching that, and they want to start, and it's just like, wow, it's just incredible to see, and it's such a positive impact on many people's lives, and it's just
100%. And this so basically just changed the game.
Absolutely,
changed the game.
1,000%.
And I was just happy to see that it has moved to this direction, because jiu-jitsu deserves it.
Could you see it moving to this direction years ago or not?
We always it's hard to tell how far and when, but I started to realize that jiu-jitsu is only growing.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time when something is really starting hitting hard. Huh?
Absolutely.
I feel like this is part of everything that is positive and really good, and we know how good it is.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time.
Absolutely.
And it has been showing. My generation was way better than the generation before.
Yeah.
Like, I remember that even for the athletes, like when I became a black belt, they began paying prize money for athletes. That was only when I got black belt. There was the first prizes. ADCC always existed, but
of course, not
since the 90s, late 90s, but there was every 2 years. And as from time to time, only that tournament. But then now look how many tournaments are offering prize money. Yeah. How many tournaments is building media for the athletes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Showcasing and highlighting, and now it's like TV programs. There's a lot of different things about jiu-jitsu. So,
sorry, I don't want to interrupt, because something I noticed. Obviously, jiu-jitsu is always known for its tournaments, for being we touched upon it right at the beginning with CompNet as an example, yeah, and all these other tournaments that are now happening every single weekend in the UK. There's a tournament. But now, when I say recently, I'm talking a couple of years, well, more than a couple of years. Super fights have become a big thing. You just did one recently in Wakefield?
No, it was in
Warrington. Warrington. And like super fights, do you see that now being not necessarily the future, but do you think that being more of the future than tournament, as in overtaking tournament, or do you see?
I think like a tournament, has a prestige and the difficulty, right? Mm-hmm. So for you to go and win one match, it doesn't mean it doesn't have the same weight as if you go and win 5 matches and 5 super fights in an hour and a half, right? I think that is a prestige to be that person who is well conditioned to endure so many matches, and competitions are always going to have a place. But super fight is how you help the athletes make. You build the story, you highlight, and I think the super fight events are putting more mainstream because there's more storytelling. Competition is less storytelling. And it's about who comes in the top as the best athletes. But that's now much more media and story engagement, and that's what makes exciting for people to watch. Who is this person and who is going to win against that person, rather than who won the tournament. And then nobody knows who is in the basis of that tournament, usually because there's no storytelling. How many times I was in a tournament, and my first match was like a world-class competitor, and I won. But they only saw the fight that I lost in the final, or the one that I won in the final. So all those fights that were below never had any attention, and they were like incredible fights. So because there are so many fights at the same time, people struggle to tell the story. So when it's that many fights, hard to focus on the main ones. And I think the media is bringing this attention to the story of the athletes and who are each one of them. But then competition is part of the pedigree. Who comes through the ranks is the ones who are getting opportunities to be in a super fight, because who they are, what do they do to be able to be credited to be in that fight.
Yeah.
You know, you need to have a pedigree. You know, John from somewhere that never competed is never gonna have a highlight to compete against Gordon Ryan. You need to be somebody who's winning and doing really well and getting to the ranks. I think competition helps to get people there.
Yeah.
And the ones that are recognized, they get opportunities to be in a super fight. So I think there will be always the competitions, but it's gonna be how the competitions elevate their top athletes.
Makes sense.
And that's what makes exciting, and that's what's becoming. Competitions are building stars.
Yes.
It's all about building stars. So you're probably gonna hear a lot more from the fights and the events that are super fights.
Yeah.
But they don't work the same without the foundation.
Of course, you gotta have it, but you gotta have the foundation in place.
Yeah. And how many people get to become that standard that competes in that level of is only like 1%. Very few people get there. How about all those people that are really good but also competing? They need to have a place to showcase the skills, and competition is gonna be very needed for that. It's gonna be bigger, but fame and attention and excitement, entertainment,
That's all gonna
it probably goes more towards the more super fight events.
Nice. No, thank you so much, Victor. I appreciate it. I'm not going to hold any more of your time. I appreciate you. Again, going back to why I wanted you here today is because fine example of a leader, and I want you to influence as many people as you can out there, which you always do. But if there's one listener out there that's you've changed their mindset, the way of thinking, into a more positive outlook, oh man, that's made it all worthwhile. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time of your hectic schedule to come here.
It's a pleasure, Pindi.
And share your story with us. One last question. You missing the weather here in the UK?
You know, I have to say one thing. When I arrived in the UK, and then I was like parked in like near this cavalry place. I went, I'm going to have cavalry, but then smell of the place, the green, and it just make me feel good.
Nice.
And feel like, oh, I know this smell. You know, it's kind of felt like the home smell.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because I've been here for so long, and even though I love the heat, but it was a very nice, positive feeling to be here.
Nice.
And I know it's great to know, though, that I'm going back to a much better weather. You know, it makes it a bit easier because I'm sure all the community in the UK feels, I can take the cold, but I'd like some heat somewhere near, you know. And I think that's the good thing, that I come here, I can experience being back home, but then I can always have the good weather in Portugal. That's a positive one. It's a win-win.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure,
I
man.
appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much,
man.
Thank you.